Hello, everyone. Hubert here, and right now here with me is Chris Green. Not that's a joke. There's Aaron, Aaron from Of Mice and Men. Hello, man. How are you? How is the life
I'm
on
doing
tour?
very well.
Because
Today is day one, so
yeah, for
everything is a bit hectic.
yeah for the European part, but you guys were on the tour for the whole October and a lot of November. In US with Bullet for My Valentine and Vendette. Please tell me how was that and how excited are you for the European part?
It was great. Touring in the States was amazing. It was our first tour back in 3.5 years, so getting to see our fans and play live music again for people was just it was a fantastic experience.
Right. You prefer being on the tour or you prefer the studio time when you're creating new music or you need both of that, the balance?
Yeah, I think a good balance is healthy. I think I prefer. It's hard to say. I really do like the studio because I love the act of creation and I love that aspect of it. But then I also love once you've created something that you think is beautiful, being able to share it with people.
Yeah, for sure.
So
You guys have released your eighth studio album, Tether, on October 6th. And I would say that every band has their, well, let's say, pandemic album. And I'm curious if this one is your pandemic record more, or maybe the previous one released in 2021, and that was an Echo album.
yeah, I think they kind of both were. For us, Echo was created during the pandemic, and for this was sort of created a little bit after the fact, after everything kind of started reopening again and whatnot. But that being said, I think a lot of the same feelings that we explore and emotions that we explore on Echo, we sort of further develop on Tether. So it's sort of it's its own work, but it's definitely sort of a growth and extension from the last one.
Hmm. Sure. Let's talk about maybe the writing process now, because I'm curious, when do you feel as an artist something like, okay, I have a song? Is this happens when you need to have a great guitar riff, great melody, the vocal melody, or maybe great lyrics? How does it look in your case?
I think it's a combination of everything. For us, we all work on the music together, and then once the music is finished, then after that, then lyrics and vocals come. And um, I usually end up feeling like on the lyrical and vocal side that is already in there. It's just yet to be discovered. I don't know if that makes sense, but um, I feel like I can hear a song in an instrumental a lot of times, and then it's sort of to me, it's sort of instead of thinking about songwriting like painting where you're adding colors, for me,
Mhm.
lyrics and vocals feels more like if you were to carve a statue out of a block of marble. The statue's in there. And
Okay.
I think it was, I could be mistaken, but I think it was Michelangelo when he was talking about David. He said, I see, all I do is I see the statue in the marble and I set it free, which I always thought was kind of a cool way to think about it.
Yeah, it's great to hear because in everybody's case, every artist's case, it looks different. Some are looking at this as a whole. Some are starting from the guitarist or something like that. So thank you for a great explanation. I'm curious, how hard is that, especially for the young bands now, to be, I would say, original and to have their own specific sounds and all of that on today's metalcore scene.
Mhm. I think it's a challenge, like it's always been a challenge, but I think now more than ever, if people are true to themselves and they write with honesty and integrity with what they feel, that will usually set you apart, because there's only so many different guitars and different tunings and so many different ways you can set up a drum set or so many different keyboard patches or synths you can use. So I think it's really just the honesty that people connect with.
Hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And the live performances is also a really important thing if you're thinking about making a career as a band.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's probably harder to set yourself apart live because there's so many great live acts, you know. So I think it's really just about bringing that music to the people who have decided that it's important to them and also remembering that the only reason you're up there is because of them,
Hmm.
you know.
Sure. We're living at the times of streaming now, and I feel like there's more and more pressure on the releasing not the albums but singles and
Mhm.
promoting that. So I'm curious, what do you think about the album itself as an artist, and how important is the album form for you as an artist, as a band,
I think
maybe?
for me personally, it's very important. When we make albums, we make albums. You know, we do full albums. Even if it, even like on Echo, where we worked on three different EPs at a time, there was this whole overarching MO that this was going to be an album. You know, and so, but I also understand like we live in a fast-paced age now where um, not everybody has an hour to spare to just sit down and listen through something. You know, a lot of what music is it's the soundtrack to people's lives. So it's music that's almost playing in the background while other things are happening. You know, even if you're sitting, if you're commuting to work, you're driving to work and you're listening to music, you're not actually just sitting there listening to music, you're driving to work.
Hmm.
So it's like that becomes a soundtrack of driving to work, you know? And so we're very blessed that a lot of people have added our music to the soundtrack of their lives, you know?
Yeah, great. And how does it look in your case as a listener? Because if it's, I would say, how does it look in my case? I would say I listen to the whole album a few times maybe, and then I'm stealing the, favorite tracks on my personal playlist on Spotify, and I'm listening to that. How does it look in your case? Do you have the time to listen to the whole albums as a listener?
I try to listen to full albums, but I'm sort of in the same boat where it's like, you know, songs that really speak to me, I gravitate towards more than deeper cuts on records. And so as a music fan, I consume music that way. So as an artist, I don't begrudge people or hold it against them if they just listen to singles, you
Hmm.
know.
Okay. I'm curious, what were you listening? What kind of music? Which artists? What were you listening as a kid, as a teenager, maybe? And which artists influenced you the most back then? Because to be honest, personally, I feel like the relationship with the music that I discovered, that I was listening to in my childhood, is, I would say, stronger than everything probably that I, discovered after that. In
Oh, definitely. I think they did I think I read a scientific study that said music you discover from the ages of like 14 to 19 or 20 that's like you hold a very special emotional connection because a lot happens in your life that you associate that music with. And that's sort of, I think, when people first discover their own autonomy with, like, oh, I can like this. And sometimes you discover something that nobody else is listening to, and it feels kind of like a treasure, like a
yeah.
secret, you know? And for me, being young, I grew up in Vacaville, California, which is where Papa Roach is from. So I remember seeing them as like a local band when I was a kid before Last Resort came out, before that song took over the world basically. And so they were huge for me as a kid from that small town to think, oh, maybe I could do something. Maybe, you know, maybe I could create something that could mean something to somebody else and mean something to me. And, you know, through that, you discover connection with people.
Okay, great. Let's get back to the perspective of a listener, because I'm curious, how do you listen to music these days in this way? That is it maybe only streaming, or maybe you have some special rituals like listening to the vinyls, collecting them, or something like that?
I use Spotify mostly. I do have vinyls and we have a record player, but the ease of accessibility of streaming, plus now everything is so high quality in
Mhm.
terms of streaming. It's not like in the early 2000s when you download an MP3 and then you realize, oh, this actually sounds terrible. It's like streaming has made it easier for people to consume music at a high quality.
Okay, so you're a fan of streaming as a, listener, but how do you look at this at that as an artist? Is it good? I would say for the for which part? For the promotion of your music, because a lot of artists are complaining about that, are not happy with the money that they are earning from the streaming. How's your perspective for that? For today's I would say the way that people are consuming music.
Yeah, I think people used to make gazillions of dollars selling CDs back when you had to buy the CD in order to listen to it, sort of before the internet and before like Napster and Kazaa and file sharing and all that. So it's like that would have been nice, but I was also old enough to remember when all of the CD stores started closing before the internet sort of picked up that slack and it became hard to find music. And so I think now it's easier than ever to find new music. It's easier than ever to share your music. So for me as an artist, um, to me, I back it. I'm fully on board with it because I think if you care about art and you care about what you create and you want to share it with as many people as possible, not for the sake of money, but just for the sake of finding that connection, that I talked about, that I think streaming is arguably the best platform.
Hmm.
And I do think that things like songwriter royalties and things like that could be more fair. And I think we'll get to a place where maybe the money does catch up, not to what it was when you had to buy a $10 album to listen to one song that you liked on the radio, But I think um, as far as just people being able to discover art that means something to them, it's in the best place it's ever been.
Okay, great. Let's get back now to the I would say the touring subjects, because I'm curious is if there is any certain routine that you do on the tour as a vocalist to take care of your voice.
Um, Sleep, water, and then making sure that I don't eat too close to around the time that I sing. And
Okay.
I'm a big fan of naps. Like normally I'd be napping right now, but duty calls.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
no, that to me is basically it mostly. And then, trying not to talk too much, But other than that, that's about it.
okay. Yeah, many artists are saying about, on the first place they tell the sleep is the most important part, and it's probably really hard to do, to sleep 8 hours every day on the tour. I think it's maybe not possible. Uh,
Yeah, if I can get 5 or 6, I feel pretty good.
okay. Uh, what would you say? What would be your maybe advice for the new young rock and metal bands, rock and metal musicians that are beginning their careers right now?
I would say take care of yourself, take care of your body, and take care of your mind. Um, it's really easy when you're young to bounce back from things, whether it's a physical problem or a mental problem or emotional problem. It's easier to sort of bounce back. But if you start taking care of yourself young, by the time you're my age, I'm 35 now, it's like you will be at a place where you're not having to do so much repair work. If you kind of fix the stuff around your house as it breaks, you're not going to have a day where you're like, oh, I need to fix my whole house, which becomes like somewhat insurmountable. So that's my best advice is to just take care of yourself and start early.
All right. So for the end, a question: If is there any chance that Of Mice and Men is going to play in Poland soon, or on I don't know any festival or something like that?
I would love that. I know that we're working on European festivals for next summer right now, but I'm usually one of the last people to find out. So usually by the time you can see it on our Instagram or Facebook, like I will have found out about it like an hour before that gets posted.
Okay, so when you'll know, I'll know that probably an hour after
Yep.
that. So thank you so much for this amazing conversation, and all the best on the European part of the tour.
Yeah, Hubert, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Have a good one.